Hello the internets, welcome back to the Waifus. I'm Sefhi, your favorite gambling addict, and today we have a rant about healers in NIKKE and why we do not use pure healers anymore. So before we start, leave a like, subscribe, help me grow the channel. And if you don't want to watch the whole video, right, if you don't want to watch our daily yapping session, the answer is pretty simple. We care about damage more than we care about heals. That said, there are a few reasons as to why pure healers have phased out of the meta even when they do have decent utility. So let's jump into this. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different characters today, mostly healers, obviously, B1s, B2s, and B3s. And I want to go over some of the ones that are still used a little bit, why they're still used, and then the ones that are completely, again, gone from the current iteration of the meta. So we go to the tier list right here. We're gonna start with B1 characters and why they have become kind of useless. Now, there is not a single healer in T0, T1. If you want to consider Rogue a healer, sure. If you want to consider more than self-sustain a heal, sure. And then when it comes to T2, we find the first healer, but we never heal with her, which is Solene. Solene is not a healer. Like, I don't care what her kit says, right? We are not gonna be counting her as a healer because absolutely nobody uses her because of the heals. You do not burst with her, basically, right? That's it, right? That's it. She could be considered a healer, but it's just because of the cooldown reduction, nothing else. Like, we never actually burst with her for this HP recovery. You do have the emergency recovery with the ticket count, but that is gone after it procs once, so not really an actual healer in my opinion. And then the rest are not healers either, unless you want to consider Red Hood skill some sort of, being a healer, which not really. And then we keep going into T3, and that's where we start seeing the first healer for B1 characters with Emma and Enwa. They can provide some sustain, but we use most of them because of the actual buffs that they can provide. And they haven't even gotten that much usage, honestly. Like, I thought they were gonna be like more popular because their buffs are pretty good, but in practice, they have been like no use at all. Rip our girls. And then finally, we can get into where most of the healers nowadays are, the pure healers, T4. Some are in T5, I'm going to ignore those. There's a few in T4 that I want to talk about, B1s, then we'll go into B2s, B3s, why they're here and why we don't use them anymore. And we're going to start with Alice, Mary, Noise, and Rapunzel, right? Those specific characters. When it comes to Alice, right? Bunny Alice, sadly, even though it's a nice kit, there is no use for it. So Alice is a character that will work mostly on elemental teams because she has the stack count of buffs increased by 1 only for water code allies. Her heals are decent. She also has some extra burst generation for everyone, which is great. And she does not cannibalize your B1 because she re-enters B1. She's a 40-second. That might be one of the reasons as to why she's not as popular. But she is 40 seconds, re-enters B1, which is decent. But there is just no reason to have a stack count increased by 1. This is one of those mechanics that was explored and they released a few characters but never really went anywhere. This is not like True Damage or like Pures where we have proper team compositions right now. Even shotguns, even if there is not a lot of variations, shotguns still have way more use than increase stacks or duplicating stacks or any of those mechanics that were completely abandoned, right? And sadly, Bunny Alice was one of those characters. Well, not sadly. I don't like Alice, so it's completely fine. Then we have Mary. Mary is another character that not only has heals, she also has increased elemental damage. This is a nice character for elemental content. The thing is that by today's standards, her HP recovery right here and her elemental abandoned damage is not that great. Even if you were to be going all in into her, even on her burst, which is providing even more attack and HP, she's not good enough just because there is no CDR. Your B1s having no CDR is unforgivable unless it's a good treasury unit. Unless it's one of those girls right here, up here, right? Then those characters are fantastic for their utility. But when it comes to someone like Mary, it's just not cutting it and it's barely enough reason to be invested into her. I do love her though. I like her design a lot. She was one of the first characters they started experimenting with skin effects and making this mix of realist skin on the accessories, right? Realism on the accessories while having the still the NIKKE look. So I like her a lot. I might finish investing in her at some point, but right now there is like, you know, no reason to, not enough resources. And then we go into Noise. Noise is a character that early on, day one, was used to cheese some content. Also really cute wife. Look at that belly. My god, she looks fine. But by today's standards, it's one of those characters that even if she can heal, even if she can taunt and have the damage taken, which is a pretty bad skill by the way, when attacked 20 times. That's fucking crazy. Her numbers are nowhere near enough to be usable today. Like nowhere near enough to be usable today. So it's one of those units that, once again, sadly, just lost completely her use in the meta. Because the taunt will get her killed in most situations unless you manual her, and we have just so many better alternatives nowadays. Also, 40-second kind of breaks her a little bit. And then the last V1 I want to talk before we go into B2s is going to be Rapunzel. Rapunzel is a character that on paper has everything that we like. Has great burst generation, has good consistent heals on her basic attack, and can revive in a pinch if you need it, right? It's on a 60-second cooldown, but still, it's better than nothing. Really good character. The issue, and like I said at the beginning of the video, nothing else for the team. And it's better to bring someone that can actually deal extra damage or buff your allies than something like Rapunzel. I still use Rapunzel sometimes when I'm lazy on solo raids, to be perfectly honest here, right? But yeah, she's a character that has lost her usage in the meta completely. And I'm not even sure if early on she was actually even used, if I'm like honest. Okay, a little bit, I guess, on like lazy people, or because we didn't have enough team compositions to actually be running her, or when we needed sustain, like for example on Indivilia, on bosses like that, right? But outside of that, almost no usage, sadly, on our best Noon. That's for the big ones. As you can see, it's the same concept across all of them. Either outdated kits or just pure heals are completely useless when it comes to big ones. When it comes to big twos, it's a pretty similar situation. A lot of these characters do have heals, but the amount of buffs they provide are way better. Nayuta, your mates, if you want to consider a blank but you have to pair her with someone else. Naga, even though she hasn't been used in forever, because for core is still a fantastic character, right? Like, there is a lot more healers as B2s than there is as B1s. But if you keep scrolling down, you'll see exactly the same situation when you reach T4, which is going to be your Marciana and your Rem. On T3, there are still a couple that are, if you want to consider Delta a decent healer, I don't think she's a decent healer. I think she's like rogue, like does the bare minimum, but still has good synergy with Crown, so why not, right? But the two that are, or were most commonly used previously, were Rem and Marciana. Rem is the worst case of power creep in gacha history. Okay, let's not exaggerate, there are worse games than NIKKE, but she was released as a rocket launcher buffer while providing decent sustain. And that's such a great kit. Like, her kit is actually a great kit. It's such a nice idea. But her numbers are awful. And the next character they released after Rem was this. One of the few characters with 100% usage across every single raid on the top 50 for solo raid players on all servers since she came out. The best B2 in the game that I highly doubt will ever see power creep unless, you know, we get 5 characters that are stronger than Crown. That would be a fucking problem for the game. But yeah, the worst timing to release Rem. I like her kit. I would love if she gets buffed. I don't think it will ever happen. But sadly, her numbers are not there. It's not enough buffs for your rocket launchers. And then the other B2 that it's one of my favorites, but finds no place in the current meta, is Marciana. Marciana has a nice storage mechanic, really good heals on last bullet mechanic as well, on a 20-second burst. So she's like a perfect healer, and she is one of the best healers in the game. The problem is she's a B2 with no utility competing. Look at all of these characters for B2. There is not a single chance she can compete with these units. Like, not a single chance, right? So sadly, healers find themselves on a really competitive market, let's say, for B1s and B2s. And even if we talk about B3 healers, the only real one we've been using, it's Helm. And that's because her treasure is such a treat, right? For everything it provides. Everything else here, nothing heals. On T2, Ada 1 if you want to consider her, but it's a buffer, not a healer. Is there anything else that heals around here? For B3s, your mana, that is on mega niche. And once again, like, she hasn't even really been used unless it's Wind Week, right? Yeah. When she was released, the next raid, and then basically everyone forgot about her. So even mana is a character that doesn't find that much usage. I don't think there's anything else B3-wise that actually heals. It's never been a niche they really explore. There are a few at the bottom, like Quitty. I've said this a few times, I want to make a separate video on Quitty. I think she deserves her own standalone video. Her own standalone jumping session. Quitty was the OG Delta, the Delta alt, sadly. She was the first time they experimented with a defender-oriented only buffer, and it was an absolute flop. That's it. That's basically, like I was saying at the beginning, why we do not use pure healers. They are just on a really competitive market. It's almost impossible to compete with them. And even the majority of healers we were talking earlier, B1-wise, they are also buffers. At least with the duplication of stacks, you're made with the elemental damage. Like, a lot of those are still buffers. They are not pure healers, or even Solim with the CDR if you want to count it, right? So the pure healers are basically gone from the meta. I don't think we'll ever see them again. Like, I don't think we'll ever see pure healers again in the meta in NIKKE. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do some bosses or some game mode in the future where it's worth it. But at the moment, sadly, those girls are gone. That's it. Enough japping, enough ranting. That's everything for this video that I wanted to talk about. Do let me know how you guys are feeling about pure healers in NIKKE. If you think it's actually worth using them or not outside of, solo raids for boomer hand people like me. And as usual, we are live every single day. Links in the description down below. Good luck with your pool units, and I'll see you in the next one.